ведения диалога.
Let me remind you that the last significant political and diplomatic achievement in strategic stability was the conclusion of the Russian-American Reduction of Strategic Offensive Arms Treaty in 2010. However, due to the highly hostile policies of the Biden administration, which violated the fundamental principles on which this agreement was based, its full implementation was halted in 2023. Nonetheless, both sides have affirmed their intention to voluntarily continue adhering to the key quantitative limits outlined in the treaty until the end of its lifespan. Thus, for nearly 15 years, this agreement has continued to play a vital role in maintaining a balance of power and certainty in the realm of strategic offensive weapons. The New START treaty expires on February 5, 2026, which signifies the imminent disappearance of the last international accord on direct restrictions to nuclear missile capabilities. Russia is prepared to continue adhering to the central quantitative limits for 1 year beyond February 5, 2026, as stipulated by the New START treaty. Moving forward, we will evaluate the situation carefully and make a definitive decision regarding the continued adherence to these voluntary self-restrictions. We believe that this measure will only be sustainable if the United States acts similarly and refrains from taking steps that could undermine or breach the existing balance of deterrence capabilities.
We have certain hopes to continue the Russian-US dialogue, especially after the Alaska summit. In the current U.S. administration's approaches, we see an aspiration not only to assist in finding realistic ways to settle the Ukrainian crisis, but also a desire to set efficient communication, not ideologically conditioned. Russia and the U.S. bear a special responsibility for the global state of affairs, for avoiding risks that could plunge humanity into a new war. New initiatives from the Russian Federation put forward by President Putin on September 22nd are to facilitate maintaining strategic stability. Those are on readiness to adhere to the main quantitative limits of the Strategic Arms Reduction Treaty for 1 year after its expiration on February 5, 2026, provided that the United States acts similarly and does not take steps that violate existing deterrence capability ratio. We believe that implementing our proposal will create conditions necessary to avoid a strategic arms race, preserve an acceptable level of predictability in the nuclear missile sphere, and improve the overall atmosphere in Russian-US relations.
$25 करोड़ गरीब गरीबी को परास्त करके बाहर निकले।
For the good of our nation, let's work together and let's truly make America great again.
The fastest news breaks.
Requested PM saying that we will have to speak to Putin and to Zelensky.
The biggest news makers.
The relationship with India is probably the most important bilateral relationship the U.S. will have for the rest of this century.
The capital delivered quite an election result today.
Expert analysis.
The million-dollar question today is how to stop this dance of death.
Ground reports.
I'm standing at the crossroad of the Kumbh Mela. Behind me are more than 100 entry guards.
Long-form interviews.
Exclusionary politics is reflected in Manipur case as well. You don't bother because this is a small state.
Deep dive into burning issues.
It's often said DRC could be the richest country in the whole world. It's because of what sits underneath.
Why exactly did the US topple the Sheikh Hasina government?
HD videos. We don't just break news, we break it down.